Chapter 871. Madam Edith, I can testify that Brittany was the one who got the Jade Maiden scripture. That's right. It was all thanks to Brittany. That rotten bastard had nothing to do with it. Nikki, you must have been mistaken. The disciples spoke out one after the other, choosing to side with Brittany. Why you all? Nikki was annoyed. She couldn't believe all of them were exactly like Brittany. They didn't hesitate to change the truth. It was outrageous. Did you hear that, Nikki? Everyone here saw it. Are you still going to argue with me? Brittany smirked triumphantly. She looked at Nikki as if she were a fool. In the Jade Maiden Sisterhood, other than Madam Edith and a few elders, nobody dared to go against Brittany. She could distort the truth as she liked. Madam Edith, please believe me. I'm not lying. Nikki didn't give up and tried to get Madam Edith's support. Many of them are saying you're wrong. How am I supposed to believe you? Edith's expression was frosty. It seems like exhaustion is making you confused. If there's nothing else, you should return to your room and rest. With that, Edith turned around to leave. Madam Edith. Nikki panicked and grabbed her sleeve. I'm not lying. It's Brittany who. Shut it. Edith grew impatient and slapped Nikki across the face. Following the crisp sound, Nikki was knocked to the ground. Her cheek swelled as blood trickled down the corner of her mouth. She struggled to get up. You spoke ill of your seniors and showed no respect to your elders. You have overstepped your boundary. You must be taught a lesson. Otherwise, you'll repeat the same actions or worse. You will kneel here until night. You're not allowed to get up before then. Edtai's tone was sharp, and her expression dark. Madam Edith. Nikki cupped her cheek, feeling lost. She wasn't lying. She was just asking for justice. Was that wrong? How dare you? Brittany glared at Nikki, enraged. Nikki hoarsed, are you questioning me? Brittany roared. I'm just speaking the truth. Nikki lowered her head slightly, but her gaze remained unyielding. The truth. HMPH. You're just trying to undermine me. Brittany's expression soured. We're guild members, and I can't believe you challenge me on behalf of an outsider. With her seniority in the guild, no one dared talk back to her, even when she was oppressive and unjust. She couldn't believe Nikki questioned her publicly and embarrassed her. Nikki should have known her place. Brittany, don't you have a conscience? We can't just ignore it when Dustin helped us out, Nikki reasoned. Shut up. Brittany's temper flared, and she slapped Nikki hard across the face. She screamed, who the hell do you think you are? How dare you lecture me? You. Nikki bit her lips, feeling wronged. Her face was swollen from the slap. Just then, Edith finally spoke up, enough. We're all members of the same guild. There's no need to argue about a small matter. Madam Edith, I'm telling the truth. Dustin handed the Jade Maiden scripture to me personally before I handed it to Brittany. Nikki tried to explain. Do you have proof? Edith asked, impassively. The other disciples saw what happened. They can vouch for me. Nikki pointed at them. Oh, is that so? Edith looked over lazily at the other disciples. Madam Edith is asking a question. All of you must answer truthfully. Brittany's expression was icy, and her gaze was hostile. Chapter 872. Sorry, Dustin, I couldn't help you. Nikki was kneeling on the ground, feeling guilty. I didn't expect things to turn out that way. You worked hard, yet you didn't get anything in return. I don't care about any of that. On the other hand, have you ever thought of leaving Jade Maiden Sisterhood? Dustin asked suddenly. He was upset when Brittany hit Nikki earlier but didn't intervene. Firstly, it was because that was an internal conflict within the Jade Maiden Sisterhood. Secondly, it was to make Nikki recognize reality sooner. Leave. Why? Nikki frowned. The Jade Maiden Sisterhood has a bad environment. They don't set good examples, either. It's not suited for someone like you, Dustin said bluntly. Hey. I won't let you insult my guild like that. Nikki's expression hardened, upset with. Dustin. Am I wrong? A guild that distorts the truth and doesn't follow reason won't have a future, Dustin stated calmly. Madam Edith treats me well. You just haven't noticed, Nikki defended. Don't be naive. If she truly cared for you, she wouldn't have let you suffer injustice. Dustin chuckled. She knew what happened, yet she chose to side with Brittany. She even made you kneel in humiliation despite your significant contribution. Is this the behavior a mentor should have? You think. Stop talking. Madam Edith is not like what you think. Nikki shook her head repeatedly. Fine. Let's wait and see then. Dustin smiled weakly, not saying anything more. Inside Zephyr Lodge, a horrible shriek pierced through the night sky, echoing throughout that night. It was none other than Edith who screamed. All the Jade Maiden Sisterhood disciples were in an uproar and rushed toward where Edith was staying. As soon as they entered the courtyard, they saw Edith lying on the ground as she spat out blood. Compared to her usual graceful appearance, she appeared pale and listless. Her hair had also turned half white. She looked as if she had aged by more than a decade. Madam Edith. What happened to you? Brittany was shocked and rushed up to help her. There's something wrong with the Jade Maiden scripture. I went to extremes during training, Edith coughed violently. As she spoke, she spat out another mouthful of blood. What? You went to extremes? The group's expression shifted upon those words. The Jade Maiden scripture was precious. Treasure the guild's ancestors passed down. How could it have possibly caused such problems? Brittany, where did you get the Jade Maiden scripture? It caused Edith to go to extremes in training. Right then, the elderly woman beside Edith suddenly grabbed Brittany by the throat. Her expression was menacing. Madam Letitia, it had nothing to do with me. I've never thought of harming Madam Edith. Brittany shook her head, looking desperate. She suddenly thought of something and quickly explained, I get it now. It must be Nikki who was behind this. She must have done something to the scripture when I got her to look for it. That's right. Nikki must have conspired with Dustin to frame Brittany. The disciples said. That traitor. Seize her and bring her here for questioning immediately. Letitia screamed in anger. Right away. The disciples answered and left hastily. Soon, Nikki, whose hair was disheveled, was brought into the courtyard. She was tied up. What are you guys doing? Let me go. Nikki struggled relentlessly, feeling wronged. She had just finished her bath. And the moment she stepped out, she was captured by her fellow disciples. Nikki hoarsed. You acted in defiance of authority and betrayed the guild. How do you think you should be punished? Letitia glared at Nikki. Betrayed the guild. Nikki was taken aback. Madam Letitia, what the hell are you talking about? You altered the Jade Maiden scripture in secret, which led to Edith going to extremes in training. Are you still going to deny it? Letitia roared. What? Madam Edith went to extremes in training. Nikki was shocked, her gaze darting around. She quickly noticed Edith in a listless state. She asked anxiously, Madam Edith. How did this happen? Are you all right? Chapter 873. Stop pretending. If it weren't because you harbored ill intentions, Edith wouldn't have gotten hurt. Letitia shrieked. It wasn't me. Nikki shook her head repeatedly. I didn't do anything. I passed the Jade Maiden scripture to Brittany right after I got it. Shut up. Brittany's expression shifted upon hearing her. She rushed up and slapped Nikki's face 2 times. She screamed, You bitch. How dare you slander me? It's you who planned this. Exactly. We all saw it. You were the one who handed the Jade Maiden scripture over to Brittany. It seems like it's true that you can never know someone completely. I can't believe you would be so bold to harm Madam Edith. One after the other, the group of disciples condemned Nikki. I didn't. I would never harm Madam Edith. Nikki panicked. She struggled to get up but was unable to move. You bitch. Are you still trying to deny it? It seems like you still won't learn a lesson. Punish her with torture, Letitia ordered. Soon, a few disciples of the disciplinary board pinned Nikki forcefully to the ground. A thorny iron whip soaked in chili pepper water was brought out. The iron whip was specially crafted to break through divine aura. A few lashes were enough to overwhelm a skilled divine-level martial artist. Let me ask you again. Do you plead guilty? Letitia growled. No. I didn't do anything. I'm innocent. Nikki gritted her teeth, her gaze unyielding. You brought this upon yourself. Torture her. Letitia gestured to the disciples. Yes, madam. The disciplinary disciple answered her and swung the iron whip down forcefully. A crisp whack echoed as the thorny iron whip struck Nikki's back hard. Instantly, her clothes tore, and flesh gaped through her skin, covering her in blood. Nikki endured the pain. She gritted her teeth and clenched her fists tightly. The disciplinary disciple showed no mercy. She delivered whip after whip, each strike landing heavily on training and the game fartenst. The Stad, Malin, show it the Aris Pone all right. Soon, Nikki was covered in injuries. Although she was evidently in pain and was breaking out in cold sweat, she refused to yield. She continued to deny and defend herself from the claims. Do you plead guilty? Letitia's expression was cold. No. I'm innocent. Nikki looked at Edith pleadingly. Madam Edith, my loyalty is unwavering. I will never betray the guild. Please investigate clearly into it. Edith's gaze was frosty as she remained silent. It was as if she didn't hear her. Keep going. Letitia raised her hand again. Let me do it. Brittany volunteered, her gaze turning cold. She grabbed the iron whip from the disciplinary disciple, wanting to torture Nikki personally. Since she was more skilled, her blows were more forceful. Each lash that came down left Nikki groaning in pain as her face twisted in agony. This is your punishment for harming others. I dare you to harm others again. I'm going to cleanse our ranks today. As Brittany whipped Nikki, her lips twisted into an evil smirk. She was acting based on a personal grudge. After the torture, Nikki was covered in welts. Her back was so injured that it was hard to differentiate between flesh and blood. It was a gruesome sight. Yet, the Jade Maiden Sisterhood disciples looked at the sight coldly. Not a single person felt sorry for her. Stop right there. Suddenly, they heard a loud voice. At the same time, someone grabbed the iron whip from Brittany's hands, breaking it on the spot. Chapter 874. It was Cornelius who saved Nikki. When Dustin yelled, Cornelius appeared in front of them instantly. He grabbed the iron whip and broke it in half. How dare you! You insolent bastard! The Jade Maiden Sisterhood disciples shouted. They were angry at Dustin and Cornelius for disrupting the punishment. Some took out their swords, looking ready to fight. Dustin ignored them and walked up to Nikki. His expression darkened when he saw her covered in wounds and looking close to death. It was one thing to steal credit. Dustin could have acted as if nothing happened. But now they had falsely accused a person and resorted to torture when things turned bad. It was outrageous. All of you are fellow disciples. Do you think it's appropriate to use such inhumane methods? Dustin scanned his surroundings, his gaze sharp. We are punishing a traitor. Outsiders should leave immediately. Letitia warned. This is my territory. Naturally, it is my business when something has happened, Dustin uttered coldly. Hey. I'm ordering you not to be a busybody. You won't want to get involved. Brittany's gaze was hostile. Dustin was silent and squatted down. He helped Nikki, who was very weak, up and fed her hemotril to help with her injuries. He asked, what happened? Why did they hit you? They said there's something wrong with the Jade Maiden scripture and that Madam Edith had gone to extremes in training. They're so sure that I harmed her when I'm innocent. I didn't do anything. Nikki was pale and weak. She kept shaking her head. Even when severely injured, she hoped to clear herself of the blame. I understand. Leave this to me. Dustin nodded. When he looked up once again, his gaze was frosty. All of you are too much for using such methods to get the situation straight. She had evil motives and intended to betray the guild. She deserves to be whipped to death. Letitia roared. Betray the guild. Do you have evidence? Dustin countered. The Jade Maiden scripture is the evidence. Letitia looked menacing. This disciple had malicious thoughts when she presented us with a fake scripture. After Edith underwent training, she went to extremes and was in harm's way. Wait. Dustin raised a hand to stop her. You must have gotten it wrong. I clearly remember Brittany was the one who presented the Jade Maiden scripture to you. You should be asking why she harmed Madam Edith. Why you? What nonsense are you spouting? Brittany's expression shifted dramatically. She was unable to stay calm. Did I say anything wrong? Dustin glanced coldly at her. You took charge completely this morning and said through a lot of trouble to get your hands on the Jade Maiden scripture. You went. Now that something has happened, you pushed the blame onto Nikki. You're such a master at blaming someone else. Shut up. Brittany was flustered. Another word of nonsense out your mouth, and I'll retract your chance of being my fanboy. Madam Parker, you were at the scene today as well. You should be clear about what happened. If you haven't lost your memories. Dustin turned his attention to Edith. It's Brittany at fault, and yet you pushed the blame toward Nikki. I wonder if you're acting dumb or just playing favorites. Edith's lips twisted into a frown at Dustin's words. She couldn't believe someone dared challenge her authority. This bastard was asking for death. You insolent bastard. How dare you judge Edith with your status? Letitia roared. I'm just seeking justice. Dustin had his arms behind his back as he glowered at them. The Jade Maiden Sisterhood is a legitimate guild. If word gets out that this is how you handle matters, you will be the joke of the town. How dare you? Edith couldn't hold back any longer. She angrily screamed, Who the hell do you think you are? How dare you point fingers at us? Grab him. Chapter 875. I will break your legs for humiliating Edith. Letitia's gaze turned cold. She shot toward Dustin like a ghost. As a divine-level marital artist, her skills were second only to Edith and comparable to several elders of the Jade Maiden Sisterhood. Go to hell. Cornelius' expression darkened when he saw Letitia trying to attack Dustin. He replicated Letitia's palm attack with equal force, resulting in a loud collision. He staggered a few steps back before steadying himself. But Letitia was sent flying a few meters away before crashing heavily into a large tree. It was like a car had hit her. The force left her coughing blood uncontrollably. What? The expressions of the Jade Maiden Sisterhood disciples fell. Letitia's skills ranked among the top 5 of the Jade Maiden Sisterhood members. None of the disciples could match her power. Yet, she was severely injured by a skinny old man. It was astonishing. Even Edith appeared unsettled at that moment. They didn't expect Zephyr Lodge to have such a strong fighter. You should know your place. Cornelius sneered before returning to Dustin's side. After collecting herself, Brittany roared, How dare you hurt Madam Letitia? Your crimes are horrible. Dustin Rhys. I order you to apologize to Madam Letitia immediately and slap that old man. Otherwise, I will get mad. Dustin didn't respond to her and looked Edith straight in the eye. Madam Parker, first things first, please get the situation straight. I'm not a member of your guild. I will not let you act as you like. Secondly, everyone can tell right from wrong. You allowed your disciples to twist and distort the truth. It will lead to your downfall sooner or later. Lastly, let me remind you. This is my territory. I'm in charge here. I welcome your presence as guests. But if you continue creating disturbances with your arrogance and domineering attitude, don't blame me for throwing all of you out of here. You wouldn't dare. Edith's temper flared at his words. She was the leader of the Jade Maiden Sisterhood with more than 10,000 disciples. No matter where she went, she was the center of attention. She had never been humiliated like this before. Why wouldn't I? I only let you stay here because of Nikki. But now you have angered me. All of you, leave. Dustin ordered, glaring at them firmly. You. Edith was furious that her face flushed red. The veins on her face were bulging. Suddenly, she coughed up blood and nearly collapsed. She was already severely injured from going to extremes in training. Her internal energy and blood surging only worsened her condition. Seeing that she was no match for Dustin, Edith suddenly turned to Nikki. Why, you traitor? She yelled. I've treated you well all this time, yet you conspired with an outsider to humiliate me. Those words struck Nikki like a lightning bolt, and she froze to the spot. She collapsed to her knees with a thud when the shock wore off. She begged Edith, Madam Edith, I was wrong. I admit to the crimes. You can punish me as you see fit. Please don't kick me out. It's too late. Edith dropped her kind act. Her expression was stern. From today onward, I am no longer your mentor. And you are no longer a disciple of the Jade Maiden Sisterhood. Now, get out of here. This is my home. If anyone is leaving, it is all of you, Dustin stated. Edith's expression stiffened before she coughed up another mouthful of blood. She was irritated to the point she fainted on the spot. Chapter 876. Madam Edith. The Jade Maiden Sisterhood disciples were shocked to see Edith collapse. They surrounded her, trying everything they could to wake her up. But all their efforts were in vain due to the severity of her injury. Hurry up and get her a doctor. Letitia commanded and got the disciples to carry Edith outside. Injuries sustained from going to extremes in training are not something an ordinary doctor can treat. Of course, if you admit to your mistakes and pay me $5 billion as a reward, I can consider saving Madam Parker, Dustin said impassively. What nonsense. $5 billion. Why don't you rob the bank instead? Letitia glared at Dustin. Edith is blessed and has luck on her side. Nothing will happen to her. Even if she were on the brink of death, we will never beg for your help. Really? Good luck then. Dustin smiled. Let's go. Letitia wasted no time. With a wave of her hand, she led the group out. Madam Edith. Nikki struggled to approach them but was pushed to the ground by Brittany instead. Get lost. You're no longer a Jade Maiden Sisterhood disciple. You have no right to come near us. As she spoke, she turned her attention toward Dustin. And you. You have angered me this time. I will strip you of your right to be my fanboy. I will make you regret this for the rest of your life. With that, she left in a huff. Idiot. Dustin spat out. How could she still make it about herself at a time like this? She was indeed a lunatic. Madam Edith, still kneeling on the ground, tears streamed down Nikki's face as she watched them leave. She never expected the Jade Maiden scripture to cause them to fight amongst themselves and for her to be abandoned. For some reason, she had become the greatest sinner of the Jade Maiden Sisterhood. It's better to leave a guild like that sooner than later, Dustin consoled her. Nikki was filled with sorrow. You don't understand. You don't understand a thing. Madam Edith saved me once and has shown me nothing but kindness. How can I leave before repaying her? Your mentor doesn't care about you at all. Don't lie to yourself. Dustin shook his head. It was good that she understood gratitude, but it was also important to consider who she was showing it to. Nikki bit her lip. I owe her that much. I need to repay her. Do you want to return to the Jade Maiden Sisterhood? Dustin frowned slightly. I'm returning no matter what it takes. Nikki nodded firmly. Her gaze was unwavering despite her battered condition. Fine. I'll help you again for your brother's sake. Dustin felt helpless. There was no turning back for this kid. She was determined to keep going. You. How would you help me? Nikki looked doubtful. Only I can heal your mentor. I also have the complete Jade Maiden scripture. I believe they will come again in 2 days. When that day comes, you'll be able to rejoin your guild again, Dustin said calmly. Really? Nikki's eyes lit up. You'll find out for yourself soon enough. I just hope you won't regret it, Dustin warned. No, I won't. I will never regret it. Thank you. Nikki lit up in joy and gave Dustin a big hug. Although it aggravated her injuries, and she grimaced in pain, the smile on her face never diminished. To her, being able to return to the Jade Maiden Sisterhood was the only good thing among her misfortune. Just as Dustin was about to say something else, his phone rang. Chapter 877. Ruth's urgent voice quickly came through when the call connected. Dustin. Bad news. My sister is in trouble. Trouble. Dustin furrowed his brows. What happened? The family treasury has been robbed. My sister is the prime suspect. They're going to use the house law on her. Ruth exclaimed in panic. Try your best to hold them up. I'll be there as soon as I can. Without a moment to spare, Dustin hung up and swiftly headed to the Harmons' residence. With Cornelius. Meanwhile, inside the Harmons' ancestral altar, a group of people blocked Natasha at the entrance. She was trapped with nowhere to go. The elders of the family were angry and filled with righteous indignation. They scolded her non-stop. Natasha. How dare you conspire with outsiders to steal from the family treasury? You are truly an ungrateful daughter. You have ruined our 100-year-old legacy. How do you think you should be punished? You bitch. How could the Harmons have raised such an ungrateful brat like you? The group kept pointing fingers and criticizing Natasha. Amidst the anger, there were also strong feelings of resentment. I've explained many times. I did not steal from the treasury or conspire with outsiders. I have no idea what is going on. Natasha frowned, her expression grim. She had just laid down to rest not long ago. But a group of family elders suddenly barged into her room without a word and brought her to the ancestral hall to be locked up. For some reason, they accused her of theft and forced her to confess. You have no idea. What a joke. Dylan stepped up and said coldly, everyone knows there are only 2 keys to the treasury. One is with you, and the other is with Uncle Hector. With Uncle Hector not around, you are the only one who can access the treasury. That means you're the one behind this theft. Exactly. The key is with you, and now the treasury has been robbed. It must be you. Kate added. Natasha. The family has always treated you well. Why would you do this? Trent exclaimed. Uncle Trent, it wasn't me. I didn't do anything. Natasha shook her head. If it wasn't you, was it Uncle Hector? Dylan sneered. My father and I would never do anything to harm the family. This must be a misunderstanding. Natasha's brows furrowed deeply. Natasha Harmon. Stop denying. If you confess and return the stolen treasures, there might be a chance to resolve this. But if you insist on being stubborn, we must enforce the house law. Dylan threatened. Uncle Jacob, if someone steals while being the guardian and destroys the family's legacy, how do we deal with them according to the house law? Kate asked sarcastically. Jacob answered with a grim expression, gouge out their eyes, cut off the tongue, and break off their limbs. The crowd's expressions shifted when they heard that. If they truly enforced the house law, Natasha wouldn't survive. I haven't done anything wrong. Who dares enforce the house law on me? Natasha yelled. Her gaze hardened as she stared at the crowd without fear. Natasha, I'm giving you one last chance. Hand over the treasures, and I can pretend that nothing happened. Otherwise, you'll have to face the consequences. Trent looked serious. Uncle Trent, I've been set up. Please don't fall for it. Natasha reasoned. Still denying. You really need to be taught a lesson. Dylan didn't bother wasting his breath further and commanded, guards. Enforce the house law on her. As soon as he spoke, several muscular men approached Natasha with sharp gazes. Stop. Just then, Hector suddenly rushed in and shouted angrily, what are all of you doing? Attempting a rebellion. Uncle Hector, you came right on time. The corner of Dylan's lips curved up into a smile. Natasha conspired with outsiders to steal from the family treasury. As the family head, You should enforce the house law personally. His words carried a hidden meaning. While speaking, he took out a knife and placed it in Hector's hands. He clearly wanted the father and daughter duo to go against each other. Chapter 878. Nonsense. Hector knocked away the knife offered to him. I know Natasha very well. She would never do anything like this. There must have been a mistake. When Hector heard that his daughter was in trouble, he immediately rushed home. He didn't expect to be met with such a hostile scene as soon as he stepped inside. Were they going to enforce the house law? Who dared to enforce the house law while the head of the family was away? Uncle Hector, it's impossible to truly know a person. Character is nothing in front of riches. Dylan shook his head and continued, the treasury was robbed, and only you and your daughter have the keys. If it wasn't Natasha, was it you, then? Nonsense. Hector glared at Dylan and exclaimed, as the family head, I consider myself upright and honorable. I would never do anything that harms our family. Well, that's certainly unusual. If it wasn't you or Natasha, was it a ghost who did it? Dylan asked sarcastically. The crowd was doubtful upon hearing those words. Although Hector was selfless, it didn't necessarily mean that Natasha was innocent. Since it involved his daughter's safety, even the most upright individuals would struggle to remain impartial. Hector, the treasury theft is not a small matter. Someone has to take responsibility. Otherwise, it will be difficult to gain the trust of others. Trent said sternly. Hector, I know you care about your daughter. But this concerns the fate of our family. You shouldn't make a judgment based on your emotions. Jacob added. He was stern, too. That's right. Our ancestors' legacy must not be destroyed. Natasha betrayed and stole from us by working with outsiders. She must be punished. At that moment, a chorus of voices erupted in a clamor. Since they all had a share of the treasures within the treasury, they were naturally furious that it was stolen. Everyone, calm down. Hector raised his hands to calm the crowd. This matter hasn't been fully investigated yet. We can't just come to a premature conclusion. Dylan said, Uncle Hector, the treasury cannot be opened without the keys. I'd like to ask, where is your key? Here. Hector took out a pocket watch hanging around his neck. He opened the lid, revealing a specially crafted golden key hidden within. Since it was an important item, he always kept it on him. How about your key, Natasha? Dylan turned toward her and asked. I have it too, of course. As Natasha spoke, her hands went toward her waist. However, her expression soon shifted. The key hidden at her waist had disappeared. What's wrong? Can't find it. Dylan smiled sarcastically. It should be in my room. I'll go back and look for it. As Natasha was about to leave, Dylan extended his hand to stop her. No need for that. Your key is right here. Dylan raised his hand. A golden key was in his hands. Its design, pattern, and engravings were the same as the one in Hector's hand. What? Natasha was confused. Why is my key with you? That is a question you should be asking yourself. Dylan sneered. Right after the treasury was broken in, I immediately gathered a group of people to capture the thief. I found this key on the traitor. Bring that traitor in here. Dylan shouted. Soon, 2 guards entered, dragging an injured man in with them. That person was none other than one of Natasha's attendants. Chapter 879. What? Upon seeing the man, both Hector and Natasha frowned. They started to worry. Uncle Hector, you should recognize this man, right? Dylan walked around the attendant. I caught this guy as he escaped with the treasures. After a thorough interrogation, he confessed and admitted to his crimes. The key to the treasury is the evidence. Hey. What are you still standing around for? Hurry up and tell us the truth. This is your last chance to redeem yourself. Kate stepped forward and kicked the attendant. It's not me, I had nothing to do with it. With a thud, the man fell to his knees before pointing at Natasha. He marveled as he cried out, it was all Miss Natasha's doing. She ordered me to do it. I was just following orders. I don't know anything. Please, I beg you, spare my life. What are you talking about? When did I ever order you to do such a thing? Natasha looked serious. Ms. Natasha, we have been exposed. There's no point in denying it. You might even get a lighter punishment the sooner you hand over the treasures, the attendant said mournfully. You sure got the guts. How dare you falsely accuse me like that? Natasha's anger surged uncontrollably. She didn't expect to be framed by her men. There was no way for her to prove her innocence now. Natasha, you can stop the act. We have a witness and evidence. Just confess to your crimes. Dylan looked at her with eyes full of hostility. This is your last chance. If you don't show remorse and continue to be stubborn, we'll have to enforce the house law. Hector, you are the family head. You must enforce the house law, no matter personal reasons. Trent said sternly. The family's interests always come first. Anyone who dares to harm the family's interests is an enemy of the Harmons. Jacob declared. Enforce the house law. Enforce it. The scene turned into chaos with their chants. At first, they were just suspicious. But now there was both a witness and evidence. They were sure that Natasha was involved in the theft and had betrayed the family. It was necessary to enforce the house law in response to such a crime as a warning to others. Silence. Hector thundered. The instant sense of authority reverberated throughout the entire hall. Instantly, the voices stopped. Hector, you are the family head. Will you stand against the law for personal reasons and protect a criminal within the family? Trent asked. Hector, it is unwise to go against public sentiment. You should think this through carefully. Jacob warned. Trent, Jacob, everyone, Hector took a deep breath before picking the knife up from the ground. He spoke loudly, as the family head, I share an equal responsibility for the treasury theft. As a father, I failed to teach my child. Therefore, I hold myself equally accountable. I understand that all of you are angered at the situation. That is why I will bear the punishment on behalf of my daughter as a response to your concerns. When Hector was done speaking, he suddenly raised the knife and thrust it into his abdomen. 3 times in quick succession. Instantly, blood surged out. It wasn't long before his clothes were stained red. What? Everyone was shocked at the scene. Nobody expected Hector to stab himself without hesitation. Moreover, he didn't hold back. Each stab had pierced deep into his flesh and bones. Dad. Natasha's expression shifted as she rushed forward. However, Hector raised a hand to stop her. Even though he was bleeding profusely from his abdomen, his body remained upright. Uncle Hector, I truly respect your courage. But these 3 stabs won't clear Natasha of her crime. Dylan narrowed his eyes. I understand. Hector nodded. He then stated calmly, that is why I have decided that from this moment on, I will step down. As the family head and hand over all of my assets. I will be bearing all of the consequences. Chapter 880. What? You're stepping down as the family head. Hector's words caused the crowd to panic. Since he became the family head, Hector worked diligently and tirelessly to manage the family. He had kept everything in order. While no one in the entire family dared to challenge his authority, they found it hard to accept that he was stepping down. Dad. All of this happened because of me. I should be the one being punished, if ever. There's no need for you to bear the blame. Natasha started to panic. If Hector stepped down from his position and handed over all his assets, decades of her father's hard work would be ruined. After that, they would be left with nothing and no chance to turn the situation around. Shut it. It's not your place to speak. Hector turned back and roared. Power, status, and money were nothing to him compared to his daughter. Hector, are you sure about this? Trent's eyes shone with delight before he regained his composure. Hector, resigning from the role of the family head is no small matter. You should think properly. Jacob stroked his chin, deep in thought. Since a mistake was made, I must accept the consequences. I've made up my mind. There's no need to persuade me, Hector responded calmly. Your sudden resignation would leave us without a leader. This puts us in a difficult situation. Trent looked troubled. Trent, you are both courageous and resourceful and the eldest amongst us. You are more than qualified to take on the role, Hector said. That doesn't seem appropriate. I'm afraid it will take time to gain everyone's trust. Trent faked reluctance. Trent, your contributions to the family are no less than Hector's. I believe you are very suited for the role. Jacob showed his support. That's right. Uncle Trent has wisdom and courage. His hard work and achievements are remarkable. He can be the family head, Dylan echoed. Dad, it will be hard at first. But since everyone is nominating you, why don't you accept it? Kate said with a smile. They had struggled this long all for this moment. Thankfully, the determination and efforts didn't go to waste. Her father had finally risen to power. All right. Since everyone is insistent, I'll try it for a few days. If a more suitable candidate shows up, I'll step down and let them take over, Trent humbly said with a smile. With Trent leading the family from now on, I believe the Harmons will reach even greater heights. Jacob took the opportunity to flatter Trent. Congratulations, Uncle Trent. Congratulations on becoming the family head of us, Harmons. Dylan shook his hand. Congratulations, Mr. Trent. The crowd exchanged glances and was quick to catch on. They congratulated Trent loudly together. Trent burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, all right. From now on, I will do my best for the family. I will not disappoint you. Trent, congratulations on getting what you wished for. With the injuries I have, may I be excused? Hector bowed slightly. Go ahead. Take good care of yourself. Trent smiled and nodded. Since he was just appointed the family head, he was in a good mood. Hold on. Kate suddenly called out as the father and daughter were about to leave. Uncle Hector, even though you've taken the blame, it was ultimately Natasha's mistake. If we don't punish her properly, there might be others who would do the same in the future. What? Natasha's expression turned icy. We've already surrendered all our assets. What more do you want? By returning the goods that had been stolen, does that mean the theft never happened? Don't you think that would be letting you off too easily? Kate crossed her arms. Exactly. While we spared you from the death penalty, you must be taught a lesson to prevent you from doing it again. Dylan stated firmly. Don't push it too far. You know very well whether I stole from the family treasury. Natasha raised her eyebrows in anger. She had always been sharp-minded. After what happened earlier, she was sure this had been a setup. She was the bait, and her father was the prey. All accusations and schemes were planned to have Trent as the family head. What? The evidence is clear. Are you still going to try to argue your way out of this? Kate sneered. Uncle Trent, you're the family head now. It's up to you to decide how to handle this, Dylan said.